Climate change is not just affecting the planet, but it's affecting what food we produce and what food we eat. What role has farming and food industry contributing to climate change? Is it the problem, or can it be the solution?
There's an awful lot of emphasis at the moment on sustainability and trying to save the planet, and everyone knows that agriculture's got a massive part to play in that.
I think as an industry, farming is very resilient, but it's also very responsive.
Agricultural technology has a huge role to play in not only driving productivity and increased output, but doing so with reduced resource input.
I'm Rob Ward, I'm an ag and food tech entrepreneur, and I spent the first 30 years of my life farming a large-scale soft fruit business. Having successfully built and sold a number of food businesses, I developed a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities affecting farming and the issues across the whole of the food industry. The world's population has tripled since the 1950s, and the food and farming industry has constantly innovated during that time to keep up with the increasing demand from the population. But some of our innovations have come at the cost to the environment, and yet they are far from sufficient for our needs.
Agriculture is the underpinnings of civilization. We might be able to stop air travel, we might be able to stop industrial consumerism, but you're always going to need food, and we need to make it more sustainable by increasing the intelligence of the machines that we're using.
Farmers have a multitude of problems and challenges that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Adding another variable in terms of technology is very difficult.
Farmers need to know what is expected of them, but what they need at the moment is some clarity. They've been working now for the last 3.5 years with a lot of uncertainty.
In the meantime, food producers have been forced to provide food at the lowest possible cost. The pursuit of this affordability is now misaligned with consumers' preferences.
Personalised nutrition is definitely the future, because we now know that everybody responds differently to the same foods. Technology is going to advise us on how we should be eating, in a way taking us back to this whole idea of diversity.
Today's consumers want affordable food that is also aligned with their environmental values, and often many of them are feeling disillusioned and angry about the environmental crisis. Many of them see farming as part of the problem. The vegan movement and the Extinction Rebellion are examples of this happening and this breakdown in communication and trust.
The meat alternatives have really stolen a march and moving very quickly, whereas the use of fresh produce, so whole foods like tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, people not necessarily forgetting about, but they're not centre stage.
There's a real gap between cheap food and food that is valued. There's also a lack of understanding and public education about the food industry, which has created a breakdown of trust between food producers and the general public.
This is a chance for everyone to get control, as well as educate everybody about food, because that's also at the crux, knowing what you're eating and what it does for you.
Since the devastation of World War II, we faced the challenge of national food security. Our last 70-year agenda of maximising food production has led to the reduction in natural organic matter in our soils.
There's a widening array of technologies that can be used in regenerative agriculture. Particularly, it's about smart rotations of crops, how livestock can be incorporated within that, and also I think there needs to be much more science that has to be done that gives us specific impacts of how much carbon has been sequestered and which techniques work better than others. Otherwise, people are using very wide goalposts.
If the farming and food industry wants to be the solution to these problems, we need a whole new paradigm in how we think about food production and how we eat it.
It's important as an industry that we balance the production and how we produce food with the increasing need to be very mindful of the impact that our food production has on the environment in which we live.
Today we need a revolution in agriculture and food technologies, which is efficient, affordable and sustainable. There is now an opportunity to use new technologies to reconnect food and agriculture as a seamless channel.
There's two things that I've observed. One is the applications of biotechnology and how it can dramatically make food safer. Give an example, bananas have traditionally been only one variety called Cavendish and are very susceptible to one particular virus. So you need gene editing technology in order to remove the gene that makes it susceptible to that. So biotechnology has huge implications if you want to eat bananas. The other side is the use of AI to actually make the whole process more streamlined, more efficient, whether you're talking about agricultural production in terms of sourcing and supply, down to businesses going direct to consumer, cutting out a lot of the middlemen.
This is where food producers can have more accurate data about the market, which in turn reduces food waste, and human inefficiencies and of course guesswork.
One of the challenges is that the uptake of some of the agricultural technologies that have been developed or are being developed is perhaps lower than we might like or expect, or the rate of adoption is slower than we would like to see. So one of the challenges is really being able to bring down some of the barriers that prevent farmers from adopting new technologies.
The technology that has the lightest touch point, where farmers don't actually know that they're changing or having to change their day-to-day process to implement large step changes in innovation, is the way that we need to move forward.
The exciting news for entrepreneurs and investors is that these challenges are now presenting an opportunity to create new technologies to help fix the old age problems in food and agriculture. What's more, these new ventures are highly scalable, and thanks to the low cost of replicating digital technologies, creating global, investable new businesses that are solving real problems.
The themes that we see reoccurring are things like startups spending a lot of time on effective farm management, sustainable food production, plant-based proteins, personalized nutrition. And we're seeing this year for the first time a lot more interest from emerging markets, so places like India, so the subcontinent generally, and Africa.
I hope the developing agricultural countries don't make the same mistakes as us. We could leapfrog a lot of disease in emerging economies, agricultural economies, by going straight to the technology.
Today, food and agriculture have the potential to be one of the highest growth markets using these new technologies along the whole supply chain. We also have an opportunity to invest in new ways of communication with consumers to create transparency and build trust.
When it comes to protecting innovation, particularly in the food and agtech sectors, there's a few challenges and pitfalls to avoid. Filing too early with limited information and limited resource. Having the drafting process done well with an attorney to communicate all the intricacies of an invention properly.
This is an exciting time in the history of food and agriculture to invest in global solutions and make an impact. Today, we need a revolution in agriculture and food technologies, which are efficient, affordable, and sustainable.
I think the answer to how we tackle a food system that doesn't work anymore and disrupt it is to take it back to people, to push power where information is, so redistribute power to an extent. What we need is a more holistic solution that doesn't have the amount of silos that we have now. I would find ways to create a more egalitarian and democratic way of finding the right solutions so that we understand all the trade-offs that need to be made so that people are on the same page and understand where each other are coming from.
The exciting news for entrepreneurs and investors is that these challenges are now presenting an opportunity to create new technologies to help fix the old age problems in food and agriculture. What's more, these new ventures are highly scalable, and thanks to the low cost of replicating digital technologies, they create globally investable new businesses.